Do you like adventuring into magical forests? One of those forests that seem to have an intelligence of their own and they seem to think on their own, and that's not even talking about the magical and weird creatures inside of this forest, like fairy dragons, owlbears, all kinds of fake creatures, and some really weird creatures. Do you like those magical forests where a lot of adventurers go in, but not a lot of them come out, and the ones who do come out with a lot of really weird scars and even weirder stories? If this all sounds for you as an adventurer, maybe you should check out Tales of the Old Margreve. So, welcome back to my channel. I love it that you're still here. I know I have been a little bit quiet the last few weeks, and it is because I have a lot of things going on in my life, but I have good news, and I will tell about that to you in a different video. Starting from somewhere in September, I will have 1 day off a week from my regular job, 1 day off every week, and I will use that day to create content for this YouTube channel. So starting from September, October, I will have way more content to put out for you guys. So if you like my reviews, if you like my tips and tricks, if you like my channel, make sure to click the subscribe button below. It really helps me out. Let's get to it. A few weeks ago, Kobold Press has sent me this, and in the same package, they've also sent me this, which is the Tales of the Old Margreve Player's Guide, and in the same package, they've also sent me this, which is the Tales of the Old Margreve creature pawns and NPC pawns and some other pawns with creatures and NPCs that are in Tales of the Old Margreve, which is totally wicked awesome that they've sent all this stuff my way. And as you know, Kobold Press still endorses my channel. Few things I want to say about that. First of all, Kobold Press, it's completely amazing that you're doing that. It's totally awesome. And the thing is, as long as they endorse me, I have a deal with them. As long as they endorse me, I keep this channel ad free. That's for you guys, so you don't have to click through ads or see ads in the middle of my videos, because I don't like that when I'm watching YouTube. You don't like that when you're watching YouTube. Nobody likes that when they're watching YouTube, so we're not doing that while we're watching YouTube. So you don't have to install ad blocker or anything, because my channel is ad free. Also, as long as they endorse my channel, I give their modules top priority. If they arrive, I put them on top of my pile of yet to review modules, and I will just start reading them, and I will do a review on these modules before I do a review on anything else. Now, that said, the rule still applies that if I do not like something, I will not put it on my channel. So they endorse me, but they really know that if they sent me something that I should not like or not enough for you guys to give your money to, then I will not put it on my channel. That's a promise, and you just need to believe me on that one. That said, I'm really a big fan of Kobold Press. You might probably know that by now, and 99% of what they send to me gets featured on my channel. There's like 1 or 2 things that didn't get featured on my channel because I just didn't think they were up to par with anything else Kobold Press did. But these things, Tales of the Old Margreve, completely and totally awesome. So we can now finally get to the review of Tales of the Old Margreve. No, we can't, because I have one more small thing to say, and that is I am splitting this video into 2 videos, because there is this thing, Tales of the Old Margreve, that has all kinds of adventures in an old magical forest, and there's also the player's guide. And well, one video is just not enough to go over both of these modules. If you want to play in the Margreve, in the Old Margreve, as a player, there is this player guide that has all kinds of new races and all kinds of new feeds and options for your player. But we'll leave this one to the side for now, and we'll do this in a upcoming video. We are now focusing on Tales of the Old Margreve, the adventure module by itself. Tales of the Old Margreve is, of course, a book full of adventures for people who decide to go into the old magical forest that's called the Old Margreve, or a magical forest in your own setting, of course, if you'd like that, if you're playing in your own setting. But the Old Margreve is a magical forest somewhere in the center, well, almost at the center of the Midgard campaign setting by Kobold Press. Small disclaimer, this is not a full-on campaign like, for example, Courts of the Shadow Fae, which I reviewed by Kobold Press a while back, which is a big adventure that spans from level 1 to a higher level and has one big story hook to it, and it's just one big adventure. This is more a bunch of smaller adventures and encounter sites for people who are in the old Margreve or another magical forest. And all of these adventures, of course, have a overlapping theme to them, and Kobold Press does a very good job of laying that theme down. The first chapter of this module is actually a very funny chapter. It goes about how the old forest has an intelligence and a character and a brain almost of its own, and it actually can punish you or reward you for being who or what you are. For example, if the moment you go into the old Margreve, you already have a status with this forest. For example, if you are a natural being like a fae, or you are a druid or whatever, you can have a status of like +3, and small rewards come your way once you travel the old Margreve. Not a lot of bad stuff happens to you. Roots of trees are always underground, so you never trip, stuff like that. But you can also be a, I don't know, a Gearforged, which is not a natural being. Gearforged, I don't know, somebody who does bad things to forests. The forest will know, and it will have its roots unrooted, and every time you take a dash action, you will have to make a dexterity check not to fall. Or you keep encountering like pits in the ground, and every mile you travel every day is cut in half, so you have to travel for many more days to cover the same ground. It's small stuff like that. There's some very funny stuff in here that the forest can actually do to you. So just to name a few of these friendly and hostile Margreve effects, for you to get an idea, some friendly Margreve effects are that there's always a branch or handhold within reach. All strengths, athletics checks to climb the forest are made with a +2 bonus, so that's if the forest likes you. There's always a branch for you to grab. Another one is the ground always seems to be clear wherever you travel. Difficult terrain does not slow your travels. Small things like that, very fun if there's a few people in your party that are actually friendly and helping the forest, and there's a few people that the forest doesn't like. Then you go to the hostile Margreve effects. For example, three branches are out of reach for you, so strength checks to climb the forest are made with a -2 penalty. So it's very funny if some characters are like, oh, there's a tree branch right here, let's grab it, and they grab it and they just climb without problem. And there's this one dude who keeps peeing against trees, and the forest does not like that, and he's like just a little bit too small to grab that branch, and creatures can actually attack that one, which would not be funny if that would have a player dead in it. Well, it would be funny. Also, the creatures that live in this forest also act in accordance to how the forest sees you and what your status is with the old Margreve. Then there is an entire section on random encounters in the old magical forest, and these random encounters can create entire Dungeons and Dragons sessions all by themselves. 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions, just by rolling on these tables. Would be no problem to have just a few very fun sessions, if you of course have a dungeon master that knows how to handle random encounters. Now, the cool thing about this is that they decided to split these up, not so much into challenge rating, also a bit into challenge rating of course, like everybody else, but they split it up into where you are in the forest, which is actually very cool. I've never seen it this way. For example, there's daytime encounters in the outskirts of the Margreve, then there's daytime encounters deep in the interior of the Margreve, so daytime at the outskirts, daytime deep into the forest. There is of course nighttime at the outskirts, nighttime deep in the forests, and there is random encounter tables for fae. There is random encounter tables for when you're really in the center of the forest, daytime and nighttime. It's a very original way to split up random encounter tables, at least to me it is. I've seen a lot of these books that have random encounter tables, but they never split up like this. So most of the time it's more to challenge rating than it is to where you are in this particular setting. Now, a quick disclaimer for this module, maybe even a small complaint about this module from me, is that if you have this module, if you buy this module, you almost need a copy of Tome of Beasts by Kobold Press, which is an amazing creature compendium, but you cannot fully appreciate this module, Tales of the Old Margreve, if you do not have the Tome of Beasts, because a lot of the creatures that are talked about in this module are in the Tome of Beasts, and they do a great job of directing you directly to the right page of the Tome of Beasts. But if you do not have a copy of that creature compendium, well, it is actually not even worth buying Tales of the Old Margreve. I'm just sorry. Tales of the Old Margreve is an amazing book, but it's just not worth it if you do not have the Tome of Beasts. I already said that. Now, just a tip for Kobold Press and any other creators: if you need to have a copy of a certain other book when buying a book, put it on the cover. I mean, there's a lot of people that buy this stuff and they are like, oh cool, an old magical forest, and I can put this in my own campaign and I can use these adventures and random encounters in my own campaign, because there's a lot of people that know Kobold Press and Midgard, but they also do not know Kobold Press and Midgard, so they don't know that there's this big thing behind it with Creature Codex and the Tome of Beasts and all the other monster manuals and all the other books that are in Midgard. So just a tip for Kobold Press: put it on the back of the cover, or put it on the front of the cover, or put giant sticker on it, I don't care. If you create an awesome product like this, it's always worth it to just tell people that they also need another awesome product to go along with it. On a brighter note, there is a map that comes with it. There's a very, it's a small, funky little looking map that really reflects in my studio lights, if I hold it like this, okay, with the Old Margreve, with Zobeck City right there, and to the northeast, to the east of Zobeck City, there is, well, the Old Margreve, with all kinds of interesting places to go. There's taverns, there's small villages, there are settlements, there is inns, there are all kinds of weird shrines and stuff like that. And that is because the next section of the module talks about the places and the points of interests of the Old Margreve. Yes, there is about 24 pages, if I'm not mistaken, of just places to go, points of interests of the Old Margreve. For example, there is this old Bluebell Coaching Inn, which is completely mapped out right here. There are NPCs, there are shrines, there are standing stones. There's all kinds of places for your players to go that don't really have a adventure accompanied with them, but they're great story hooks and they're great places for your players to discover inside of this magical forest. One of the most interesting sections is also one of the smaller sections, one of the shortest sections in this module, and it is actually the way magic is cast inside of the Old Margreve, the Old Magical Forest. There's 6 new spells to learn for your spellcasters, which is not a lot, but it's enough. There's 6 new spells. Everybody likes new spells. But the coolest thing is just this page and the page before that. 2 small pages about how different schools of magic actually act differently inside of the forest. For example, lower level healing spells make grass grow, they make flowers grow, and higher level healing spells actually put bark skin over your player character, or they make just flowers pop out of your body, stuff like that. It's just small, different flavor-wise things which are very cool if you, as a dungeon master, make use of them. For example, the School of Divination, if you cast 2 or more divination spells in the same rounds, like if there's maybe 2 people that can do it, there's a 10% chance of crossing wires, providing all parties with inaccurate and sometimes wildly inappropriate information. So if you cast divination spells, you can really put weird information and the wrong information and inconvenient information into the wrong person's brain. Stuff like that really sets the setting apart, and I really like that kind of stuff. Then comes the juicy part, the reason you actually buy this module, and those are the 12 adventures that are in this module. Some are longish, some are medium long, and some are very short. For example, the Tongue of the Rende I just played last Saturday with a few of my friends, kind of as a one-shot in-between adventure, tied into something else. Anyway, the Tongue of the Rente is more of a encounter site than it is an adventure by itself, but it's just long enough for one section. You can do one section with it, no problem. All of the adventures in here, I've played 2 of them, and I've read almost all of them, and they are all well written, like you expect from Kobold Press, with a lot of skill, some great humor inside of them. There's ridiculously good artwork like always, and some very, very wicked cartography. The Tongue of the Rende, I will just talk about this one just to give you an example of what we did. The Tongue of the Rende is an adventure that brings people to a certain big ass mushroom that is also a little bit underground, and this mushroom has the mushroom that makes you crazy. No, this mushroom actually has the power of granting you to the ability to speak any language. If you're standing on inside of this ground of this mushroom and other people are standing there also, no matter what language they speak, as long as they speak a language, you can converse with them, you can understand each other, you can talk back to them, they will understand you, they can speak, you will understand them, and you can have a conversation. And through the years and the ages, the fey creatures and other creatures have used this site as a place to resolve wars and to talk about politics and stuff like that. And it is kind of almost a forgotten place, but it is also a place everybody knows that it's there, but it's there, it's out there in the deep forest. And I've sent my players to it, and this adventure, well, it makes your players go there for a certain reason. My reason was that if you eat a pound of this big mushroom, if you cut away a pound of this big mushroom, and remember, the forest does not like you taking away stuff from it, but if you would take away a pound from it and you'd eat it, you'd be able to speak any language you've heard in the last hour for a certain amount of time. So if you need to converse with an elf and you don't speak elf, you very quickly eat a pound of this stuff, and then you can talk with that elf for like an hour or 12 hours, I don't know exactly. Anyway, my players were looking for a piece of this precious mushroom while they went into this cave, and it's actually a very cool mapped out cave, and they encountered, inside this cave, they encountered ghouls who were up to no good, kind of making trouble in the neighborhood. So they ran into them. They were actually using necromancers to try to summon a certain spirit, the spirit of Durende, which is a complete backstory you get in a other adventure or in the lore part of this book, the Spirit of Durende, and they were there trying to, of course, summon it, and they were trying to stop the players. It's kind of straightforward because you go in here, you kick the living crap out of some ghouls, you take away a piece of the mushroom, and you go back, but well, the ghouls, first of all, are not like the ghouls we know from the Monsters Manual. They are the ghouls we know from the Tome of Beasts, which is the Midgard book, the Kobold Press book. So the ghouls are very different. There were 2 leaders with the ghouls who both do amazingly weird stuff, and they're ridiculously strong. They say they're like challenge rating 4 or 5, but I think they're more like 6 or 7. My complete party, they all went down at least 2 times. There was only 3 players of them. Anyway, long story short, it's just a great adventure, very well mapped out. There's some great atmosphere here going on because there's like smaller mushrooms everywhere that shed out bright light, blue light or red light or orange light, and it really makes your players want to pick one of them and try to eat it or try to just negate them because they're scared of them, because fungi are never a good ID when you're a player character. Everybody knows you can get into a lot of trouble in Dungeons & Dragons when touching mushrooms. You can get in a lot of trouble in real life when you're touching mushrooms. So it really scares the players, and you can really set up this nice cave with all kinds of colors and all kinds of mushrooms and fungi coming out of the walls. It's a very cool small little adventure. It's just an encounter site more, but it really, I think my players really liked it. Talking about great artwork, how about a female warrior ogre? We have way too little of that in Dungeons & Dragons. And although there are stat blocks for a lot of monsters in the adventures themselves, there's also an entire an entire section with the monster appendix with all kinds of weird margreve monsters I cannot even start to explain. All complete with lore, behavior, stat blocks, everything we're used to from Kobold Press. For example, there's Groot with a rock and Pumbaa, Green Pumbaa, with lightning. A certain band of adventurers that plays a certain tabletop game with me every month at the table in real life will get swallowed by this thing. Small recap, Tales of the Old Margreve is a adventure book with 12 adventures for players that want to go into a old magical forest. The 12 adventures are all written by different people that have an amazing set of skills and amazing talent. They are all very well written. The storytelling is great, the adventure writing is great, the artwork, like always, is great, the cartography is amazing. It comes with a fiery, funky little looking, very cool, funky little looking map that is really bright in my studio lights, but anyway, it comes with it, which is also very cool. But next to these 12 adventures, you get some amazing lore, some amazing points of interest, some very cool reasons for players to go into the old forests. There is a complete section with all kinds of weird creatures called the Creatures Appendix, with creatures you really never, ever used in your games. I swear you've never used them in your games. And there is a complete section with random encounters you can have in different parts of this forest called the Old Margreve. So if you're looking to play an entire campaign or play some adventures in an old magical forest, this thing is really worth picking up. The only disclaimer is go get a copy of the Tome of Beasts if you really want to enjoy the Tales of the Old Margreve. So that was my review of Tales of the Old Margreve. I've probably already said that title a few times in this video. Anyway, part 2 of this video series, and the last part of this video series, will host a review of the Margreve Player's Guide. A player's guide where players can create characters that can go venture into the Old Margreve, or even characters that were born there and they ventured out of the Old Margreve and now are adventurers in the wild world of Midgard or your own campaign section. It's a smaller booklet, but it is full of amazing player options, magic, feats, all kinds of stuff. Just hang in there and you will get a review of this one as well. If you want to see any of my other reviews, make sure to click one of these videos right here. And if you are like me, a great fan of Kobold Press, make sure to click the link in the description below, because I have a full playlist you can watch with everything I have reviewed from Kobold Press up until now. Some of the videos are very old and weird and in another studio and in front of a white wall and very awkward from the beginning stages of my channel. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed them and I hope your inspiration may guide you.